Good morning, this is Dr. Turner for Integrated Math 1. Today we're looking at 7.4. 7.4 is looking at angles that are formed by transversals. Transversal is a line that is intersecting two lines that are parallel. So you'll see a lot of these types of diagrams, particularly on the standardized test for whatever reason. Transversals is a big one that comes up a lot, but you'll be given that there are two lines that are parallel. Sometimes they'll be labeled. This might be line L and line M. Sometimes they're not. But the idea is the same. We have two lines that are parallel, and then we have a third line that is intersecting those two parallel lines. This line that is intersecting is what we refer to as a transversal. When we draw a transversal, we end up with a lot of different types of angle pairs. So all of these angle pairs, and if you can see here, there are a total of 8 angles. And we can label these with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in these types of diagrams, when I have these 8 angles drawn, I'm going, if I pick any two, they're either going to be supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees, or they're going to be congruent, which means that they are the same. Now, we have specific names for each of these angle pairs, which we'll go through here in just a second. So, the first of which we covered in 7.3, we have a few pairs of vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are formed by opposing rays. So angle 1 and 4 are vertical angles. Angles 2 and 3 are vertical angles. Angles 5 and 8 are vertical angles. Angles 6 and 7 are vertical angles. So each of those pairs that we just identified, each pair is congruent. Each angle is congruent to the other. So in a larger assignment like this, you might just be asked to identify, well, what are the vertical angle pairs in this diagram? So your vertical angles here would be angle 1 and 4, 2 and 3, 5 and 8, and 6 and 7. So those are all your vertical angle pairs. Okay. We also have some angles that are supplementary just by the definition of a linear pair, which means they make a straight line. So for instance, 1 and 2, or 1 and 3, or 5 and 6, or 5 and 7, or 3 and 4, or 7 and 8, or 2 and 4, or 6 and 8. All right, so any pair of adjacent angles that form a straight line, those are going to add up to 180 degrees. We won't get into that. The new information here are looking at specific angle pairs. So for us, what we're going to define here in 7.4 are what are known as alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, same side interior angles, same side exterior angles, and we're also going to define what are known as corresponding angles. So for the first 4, as the names might imply, if we're looking at, let's say, alternate interior angles, the alternate part is going to refer to our transversal. So either they are angles that are on the opposite side of that line, or they're on the same side of that line. Then when we get to the interior or exterior part, that is referring to, are the angles that I'm looking at inside the two parallel lines, or are they outside the two parallel lines? So based on that, we are going to have one of two relationships. Either A, they're going to be congruent, or B, they're going to be supplementary, which means they add up to 180. So starting with the first example, alternate interior. Okay? This could be angles 3 and 6. They are inside but on opposite sides of the transversal. Or you could have angles 4 and 5. Inside but opposite the transversal. And you can kind of tell looking at the diagram, but if by definition, we're saying that these angles are either congruent or supplementary, which means they add up to 180. You can tell just based on the angle type, right? If angles 3 and 6 are both acute angles, then there's no way they could add up to 180 degrees. So angle 3 is congruent to angle 6, and also angle 4 is congruent to angle 5. Alternate exterior angles are going to be similar. So if I look at, let's say, angles 1 and 8, or angles 2 and 7. Angles 1 and 8 are both obtuse. Angles 2 and 7 are both acute. So there's no way they could add up to 180. Therefore, those are angle pairs that are congruent. So angle 1 and 8 and angles 2 and 7. So those are examples of congruent angle pairs. And then we have same side interior. So looking at, let's say, 3 and 5, or 4 and 6. Those are different angle types. One is acute and one is obtuse. So same side interior, angle 4 and angle 6 have to add up to 180 degrees, and angle 3 and angle 5 have to add up to 180 degrees. And we get something similar with same side exterior. Angle 1 and angle 7 have to be supplementary. And angles 2 and 8 would have to be supplementary. So those are your main angle pairs. We also have corresponding. Corresponding basically means that the angles are in the same place, or quote unquote the same corner. So, if you think about corners, angles, let's say 1 and 5, are in the same corner. And they're both acute angles, and we already said that any two angle pairs are either congruent or supplementary in these diagrams. So, angle 1 is congruent to angle 5, because they're both in the top left. 2 is congruent to 6, both in the top right. 3 and 7 are congruent, both in the bottom left. 4 and 8 are congruent, both in the bottom right. So based on all of this information, you want to, of course, be able to identify what type of angle pair. If I said 1 and 5, what types of angle pairs are those? Or 2 and 8, or 4 and 5. You want to be able to identify the angle pair, but in an assignment, what this is going to look like is you're going to be given a diagram, and if you are given one angle, doesn't matter which angle it is, let's say you're given angle 1, you are able to fill out the other 7 angles based on this information then. So if I start out with 120 degrees, for instance, every other angle is either 120 degrees or its complement or its supplement, which would be 180 minus 120. So you have 120 degrees, 120, 120, and you could just get that by filling out all the obtuse angles. And then the acute angles are the supplement. So 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. So given one angle, you should be able to fill out the other 7. That's it for today, guys. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Otherwise, have a good day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.